Welcome back into the Foolish Club Media post-game show. I am Steven Serda. You know, it's the fourth quarter of preseason game number 2, in which barely any meaningful starters played snaps for the Kansas City Chiefs. It's inexplicably a 9 p.m. kickoff in Kansas City, and me and my guy Rocky Magaña are tired. The Chiefs are currently getting blown out by the Seahawks 30-10 in the fourth quarter of this preseason game. So we said, screw it. Let's just go ahead and go live. Rocky, being, the wonderful dad, hardworking father that he is, was tired, already took a nap during this late night preseason game. I was sitting there dozing off on my couch, and I was like, let's just go ahead and bang this out, Rocky. Like, we're not going to learn that much about this football team in the fourth quarter of preseason game number 2. So screw it. We're coming you're coming your way about an hour early as Bailey Zappi enters the game for the Kansas City Chiefs.
Oh man, Bailey Zappi. I didn't want to miss any Bailey Zappi snaps tonight after midnight Eastern time. I think the biggest takeaway from the game is that the fact that Sky Moore is still in the game and taking kickoffs now and dropping kickoffs now just tells you everything you need to know about what the Chiefs think about Sky Moore and his chances of making this team. That's all you can take away from anything that's going to happen for the rest of this game today.
Yeah, just a pretty awful performance. But again, no Patrick Mahomes, no Travis Kelce in this one. They did start the game with their starting offensive line. Juwan Taylor did not get any snaps in this one. Jalen Moore got the start at right tackle. So it was Gardner Minshew. And at least on their opening possession, we got a look at Isaiah Pacheco and Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy. So they got those guys a few snaps, but then on the second series, it was all backup. So it's not like we even got a long look at those guys in this one. Some injuries and stuff to take away from this thing. And I do want to talk about the latest on Rashee Rice before we get out of here tonight, Rocky. But overall, I'm simply not going to take a lot away from this contest. Because I, for one, am just thrilled that Andy Reid finally came to his senses and was like, yeah, we just don't need to play the important guys in the preseason. I don't think we need to do that anymore. And he's always been the guy that's like, oh, we're going to get him some run. We're going to get him some reps. And I think it's beneficial to get them opportunities and get them going here. And they don't need to. Patrick Mahomes doesn't need that at this stage of his career. Travis Kelce certainly doesn't. Chris Jones doesn't need that. Nick Bolton and Trent McDuffie don't need that at this stage of their career. And so the most important Chiefs did not get any action tonight. And so I'm simply just not going to read that much into a 30-10 blowout against the Seattle Seahawks.
I think the biggest takeaway is that Nick Bolton is important to this run defense. And so is Chris Jones. And that without them, the Chiefs have a really hard time stopping the run and maintaining gap discipline. Let's just call it what it is. It was a horrible run game showing by the Chiefs defense in the first half of the game. The first drive, especially, Zach Charbonnet just ran rampant all over the defense. Ashton Gelati looked lost out there. Norman Lott was ineffective. Even George Karlaftis really was not effective or at getting off of blocks. Was just getting shoved all over the place. I think without Nick Bolton's leadership and him kind of coming downhill and plugging holes, you really saw a Chiefs run defense that just got destroyed in the first half.
As it turns out, Nick Bolton, pretty important to what the Chiefs squad runs.
Now, analysis, starting middle linebacker, important to run defense.
As it turns out, maybe that contract, pretty good for the Kansas City Chiefs, despite everyone wanting to discount what Nick Bolton brings to the defense. Chris Jones, also very important to the defensive line. I do have, there's a couple of guys that I think we could feel good about coming out of this one. I think as far as the offensive line goes, it's nice to see Gardner Minshew in there, backup quarterback, competent backup quarterback. We certainly don't want to see Gardner Minshew start for any prolonged periods of time. But we know that Gardner Minshew is a capable guy, and that's why the Chiefs always have a veteran backup who has started in the NFL. They don't ever roll the dice with these guys. Like, they always go out and have one of those guys. So it's nice to see him get some run with the starting offensive line. And as far as that goes, like, wasn't so bad. Kingsley had another couple rough moments. So I think Jesse Newell tweeted this out. Like, Pro Football Focus had Kingsley rated really highly in the run game, and he was the worst offensive lineman in the game in pass blocking. So a lot of room for growth for Kingsley Suamataia. And I do wonder, like, training camp is over, Rocky. We're going to head back to, regular practice at the team facilities at Arrowhead Stadium as they get ready for their preseason finale against the Chicago Bears. Then we got that little lull period before NFL opening week when they head to Brazil to take on the Los Angeles Chargers. And I am wondering now, like, it feels like it's Kingsley's job. Like, I don't think that that's going to change because I think they want to keep getting him some seasoning and just like developing him and see if they can figure this out. But it's just, the problem is, like, he'll put together some competent snaps, but then when it looks bad, it looks really, really bad. Like, we just got to get it to look okay. Like, we just got to get it to where it's like, slightly below average, I think is something we would be happy with at this point, because when it looks bad, it looks like liability level bad.
I mean, huge liability level bad. And I think it's just always been the same thing with Kingsley, man. He can, like, in the past, like, the reason why he's better in run defense than he is in the pass blocking is because he can't maintain blocks. You know what I mean? Like, he, like, literally, if a guy's coming at him and he just stabs his hands at people, and if a guy swipes his hands away, he's off balance and the dude's past him. I don't know, man. I mean, his upside is huge. Athleticism is great. His length is great. His size is great. You like all those things. But at some point, you got to have the skill to play the position. And I don't know. I'm not convinced that he has it, to be honest, especially when he's lined up next to a guy like Josh Simmons, who I thought looked amazing today. I thought he looked better today than he did last week. Josh Simmons was awesome in the snaps that he got in the first half. I mean, just like even higher on Josh Simmons now than I was before. And so we take a positive out of it. Josh Simmons is a left tackle in this league, I think, definitively. Man, it just sucks that to see a guy with so much potential just not pan out like Kingsley.
It's just definitely concerning. And concerning enough to where I'd really like to see Jalen Moore just get some significant snaps at left guard. And maybe that's it. Maybe that's the rotation going into the season is, you have a healthy Juwan Taylor at right tackle, Jalen Moore at left guard, and then Josh Simmons continuing to develop and hopefully eventually being like a star left tackle for the Kansas City Chiefs, because it's just, you can't deal with that. Like, the first 4 weeks of the season are brutal for the Kansas City Chiefs. I know everybody's talking about the Chiefs schedule right now, but like that week 2 matchup against the Philadelphia Eagles, like, you feel good about Kingsley starting left guard against the defending Super Bowl champions right now? Because I certainly don't.
No, I don't. Not a chance. That actually makes me feel very badly on the inside of my body. It causes me anxiety to think about, Steven. I don't want to see that at all. And so I think that Andy is going to go with his best 5, and I think you could see Jalen Moore end up winning the job, especially when you consider that the other options aside from Kingsley or Jalen Moore are not much better than Kingsley. Like, Caliendo has looked really bad this preseason. Hunter Norzad has looked unplayable at backup center. Dalton Cooper hasn't looked very good. Wanya Morris hasn't looked very good. I mean, like, there's just, if you're not going to put Jalen Moore there, then there's not a ton of in-house options at the moment to take that spot.
And right now, 9 minutes left to go in the fourth quarter. Felix Anudike-Uzomah coming up, limping a little bit, goes back down on the field. So it looks like he's going to get checked out by trainer. So hope Felix is okay as he's playing late into the fourth quarter. It's still 30-10 Seattle. Yeah, like it's to the point now where it's like you felt good if Kingsley was like your locked in left guard starter, and then Jalen Moore added this like depth that you just didn't have last year. And then everybody else is just bodies that if you got to throw them in a pinch, you do it and you live with it. But now it's like if Kingsley is also just one of those bodies, it's like, okay, well, I feel like we could feel okay with Jalen Moore at left guard and the starting five the way that it is. But then it's like, okay, what happens if one of those tackles goes down? What happens if somebody gets hurt and we have to change that up? All of a sudden, I don't think we feel very good about that offensive line depth anymore because it seems like they just got a bunch of bodies that aren't necessarily bringing a lot to the table. So it's concerning, and that'll be something that I think we'll really want to pay attention to this upcoming week in practice and how the Chiefs navigate that. We got one preseason game left, and then they're going to have to make their roster cut downs and all of that stuff. So we got a busy couple weeks ahead for the Kansas City Chiefs. And there was a ton of injuries tonight, Rocky. Obviously, the Chiefs' top defensive players not playing. Nick Bolton out. Drew Tranquill also did not play in this game, so he still had that lingering back injury to try and make sure he's fully healthy for the regular season because Drew Tranquill now is like a pretty important player for the Chiefs because they simply do not have linebacker depth. And Jeff Bassa got a lot of playing time tonight, but he looks kind of like what we expected is like, he looks like a smaller athletic player, safety converted linebacker, but has a long ways to go before we're going to feel comfortable with Jeff Bassa out there a lot. Leo is still Leo. Like Leo brings some toughness to the table in the run game, but then he has got limitations as to what he is a true linebacker for the Kansas City Chiefs. And so it's, I am wondering, like I feel like we felt really good about the Chiefs depth, like coming into this season. And as we're like getting into the preseason, now I'm starting to wonder about it a little bit. And then tonight we see a number of injuries. Najee Johnson leaves the game with a shoulder injury. Noel Williams winds up leaving the game with a concussion after he looked phenomenal in week one of the preseason. He got a lot of playing time tonight. Wasn't quite as clean for the rookie cornerback, but I think we still expect big things from him this season. Jack Cochran also out with a knee injury, and now safety Mike Edwards also been ruled out with a hamstring injury. So that not only did the Chiefs have a very poor game in a rainy Seattle on Friday night, but they got really banged up heading into the final week of the preseason, playing a lot of these backup players. And so now all of a sudden I'm like, okay, maybe I am a little bit worried about the Chiefs' depth as we approach week one of the NFL season.
I mean, it just makes you thankful that they kept the important guys on the sideline tonight. It really stinks because Najee Johnson had a really nice pass defense before he, in the end zone there before he went out and got injured. And obviously Noel Williams was looking like he could have been legitimate, possible like push for starting time on the outside. As a result, since those guys are down, we saw some Joshua Williams look like less than peak performing Joshua Williams tonight. He did not look that great. And so you don't
got
feel
totally turned around by Jake Bobo on a score where
it
was an easily defendable play. Joshua Williams just had no idea where the football was at because he did not get his head around at all. Like by the time he turned his head around, the ball was already in Jake Bobo's hands for a touchdown.
Yeah, Jake Bobo looked like Jake Bobo made our secondary. He looked like we made him look like Pete Cooper Cup out there. Like it was like really, really bad. Like there was not a lot of pass defense out there by the Kansas City Chiefs defense today at all. There's not a lot of defense by our starters, period. Like Seattle, like how many? What, like they had 130 yards rushing in like the first quarter or something.
Yeah, it was pretty brutal. Jeff Bassett did just come up with a nice run stuff as Seattle with Jalen Milroe in at quarterback is inside the 10, pushing the Chiefs late in the fourth quarter. But it's 3rd and goal right now with 7:12 left to go in the game.
I will say this here. I will say this. Going back to Gardner Minshew for a second, I thought that he looked like he managed that he had control of the offense and had confidence and ran it very effectively. I think he looks better than anybody the Chiefs have had since anything is possible at backup. Like he's definitely better than Carson Wentz was last year. Definitely has more juice left in the tank. I think I like his swagger a little bit better. He's more athletic. He throws well on the run. I think he can get a guy. I think like Andy Reid says, like they don't want to have to change the playbook when the backup comes in. Like obviously Gardner Minshew's light years behind what Patrick Mahomes brings you, but I think he can run the entire offense, in a pinch. And that's really what I think you feel okay about Gardner Minshew having given you a spot start, especially after tonight. I thought he looked good. He looked like I said, he looked confident, looked capable. And so skipping to the other side though, really quick, like Seattle just has a bunch of names at quarterback. I don't know if they have any good quarterbacks. They just have a bunch of names at quarterback.
Sam Darnold looked pretty good on their opening drive.
Yeah, he looked all right. And Drew Lock didn't look too great. But I mean, you got Drew Lock, Sam Darnold, Jalen Milroe. Like those are all three like pretty well known and pretty decent prospects when they came out of college.
Yeah. And and I think especially on the defensive side of the ball too, like we're simply not going to learn a lot from this. And I know that like, you want your backups to be able to step in and just, run the defense and the offense the same way as you would with your starters. But like those guys simply aren't capable of doing some of those things. And there's a reason you do this. There's a reason you don't play those guys. And there's a reason you pass everything over to these guys to see if they're capable of doing that stuff. And unfortunately, with the guys that they tried out on defense tonight, they were not capable of running a Steve Spagnuolo defense. Like you could tell most of the time they looked like they were lost. Like they looked like they were just out of sync. Guys weren't where they were supposed to be. They weren't rotating. They weren't doing the types of things that they're supposed to do on the field because they're just backup players and they're getting reps and you want them to know the defense, but you have to bank on everybody knowing what their assignment is and knowing what they're supposed to be doing. And it's not a bad problem to have when you have a lot of young players, and the Chiefs have a lot of young players, especially on the defensive side of the ball these days. Like, I don't think through 2 preseason games, I wouldn't say I've been overly impressed by Ashton Gelati and Omar Norman-Lott, especially based off of kind of the rumblings out of training camp. And Omar Norman-Lott did get a little banged up in this one. He left the game with an ankle injury, but he wound up returning. So hopefully nothing concerning with him moving forward. But I'm not even overly worried about those guys because those guys, if they get a lot out of those guys this season, that's just a bonus to the overall defense because we know who the core of the defensive line is. Like it's Chris Jones, it's Charles Omenihu, it's George Karlaftis, it's Mike Dana, and Mike Pennell, like probably playing inside a lot. And then they're going to rotate those guys in and out. And we talked about it like a couple weeks ago, Rocky. Like what the Chiefs have this season as opposed to last season is they usually like try to find like, veteran presences to kind of pepper in on team-friendly deals in these circumstances. And this year they said, we got contracts to sign. And so we're going to go young and we're going to hope that we hit on these draft picks. And so they have no other choice but to really try to make it work and to develop these guys. It doesn't mean that they couldn't still sign a veteran guy who's floating around out there, still kind of waiting for training camps and week 1 to get around so he doesn't have to go through the preseason process. Because the Chiefs are definitely going to take a look at some guys here. And that's even Andy Reid said that this week. Like, They probably weren't going to play Mahomes and Kelsey, and they wanted to get like extended looks at the young players, because that's specifically Veach and his crew on Monday are going to say like, okay, this position group's not panning out. This position group doesn't look good. We need to add bodies in these groups. And so I wouldn't be surprised if we see the Chiefs make a couple of moves by Tuesday or Wednesday next week or something.
I agree 100%. And obviously, like you said, these guys are backups for a reason. I think the concerning thing, though, is like Steve Spagnuolo said last week in his press conference, is that it all starts with like run defense and with tackling and shedding blocks. And that run defense at its core is flowing to the football, shedding blocks, and making a tackle, right? And like that's like it's more want to and effort than pass defense is. And Steve Spagnuolo has preached that over his entire career, that flow to the ball, shed blocks, make the tackle. And I think that's what you didn't see tonight, is you saw people getting washed off of the ball. They didn't shed their blocks and they didn't make the tackles. And so that's obviously, like you said, this young guys, they're all learning. Like, you don't want to hit the panic button, on a draft pick 2 games into a preseason and just like, put the nail in this guy's coffin. He's done, because like their career technically hasn't even started yet. Like this is all still practice and training. Like there's nothing to overreact about at these games. But at the same time, you're right. It is a great evaluation for the team to say, hey, look, we do have a little bit of cap space still right now. Yeah, we do gotta get Trent McDuffie's deal done. But if maybe they don't get it done right now, maybe they don't get it done this season, and they say, okay, we still have some cap space. Let's bring in a couple veterans to kind of round out this roster now that we see what we're missing. I'm not panicking on Ormo, Norman Lund, or Ashton Gelati, like you said, because they're not the core of the pass rush, and they are developmental players. I think one thing that has kind of, it hasn't surprised me, but I think it's worth noting is, like, where's Jerry Tillery in this defense? Like,
he was playing a lot.
He
But I
played.
think Jerry Tillery was Jerry Tillery. He's
Where was he playing?
Hasn't been an impact player for much of his NFL career, and hasn't made much noise so far in his Kansas City Chiefs career.
Yeah, I don't know if Jerry Tillery is long for a Kansas City Chiefs uniform at this rate. Playing. I think that he very well maybe on the bubble. One thing that is interesting, I think, with how, like, obviously, the pecking order at tight ends goes Kelsey, Tonyan, and then Kelsey, great, and then Tonyan looked great today. Had another touchdown. Is Wiley on the bubble?
I don't think Wiley's on the bubble. Wiley had a nice catch early in this game. Like, he was getting some run early in the game.
He did have some run early in the game. He had I don't know, man. He's kind of struggling to get separation a little bit. Like,
but I know that, like, and he's still early in his way back from his ACL tear. Like, I don't think that he is on the roster bubble by any means. Robert Tonyan just seems like he was a great find by the Chiefs.
He was a great find. So you're going to carry 4 tight ends then.
Yeah, and that's going to make it tough for some of these other position groups, because like, Sky Moore just can't make this team, Rocky. Like, he simply can't make this team. You have too many. It looks like you have too many guys competing who can actually, like, bring something to the table in the wide receiver room. Like, Nico's case got hurt a little bit tonight when Jalen Royals ripped off a 49-yard return. It was one of the only highlights of the game for the Kansas City Chiefs, pretty much.
Got tackled by a kicker, though. Come on.
Yeah, and and I'm still excited for Royals. It still feels like, I was impressed with Jalen Royals through both of these preseason games, even though we didn't necessarily see him, like, come up with these huge plays as a receiver or something like that. But he showed exactly what we expect from him. Dude's got size and he's got some speed. Like, he could be an exciting player for the Kansas City Chiefs. And then Tyquan Thornton had a nice catch tonight. Like, Tyquan Thornton's continued to look impressive in the action that he's gotten. Like, Tyquan Thornton is on this team.
It's seeing him run it out of the slot and catch the ball in traffic. That's what was impressive.
Yeah.
Like, he looked pretty Rashi Rice like on that play. And that's something that we haven't necessarily seen out of Thornton in his career. It's like a new element that I think that he's added in order to make this roster.
Yeah, like they've got a deep wide receiver room, and it seems like a deep tight end room now. And then I'm wondering about this running back room right now, because we know it's Isaiah Pacheco, and we saw Pacheco early in this game. Didn't see Kareem Hunt tonight, but he was dealing with the quad injury late in the week. So, not a shocker that they let the veteran just take the night off. But we know it's Pacheco. We know it's Hunt. And Pacheco did show some bursts and some pop. Oh, my. Sky Moore. Sky Moore. Are you kidding me? Sky Moore just took it to the house for a touchdown, Rocky. Right when we're writing him off, Sky Moore rips off a huge play. I think it was a punt return for a touchdown. I just saw the tail end of it, but Sky made a couple of moves and took it to the house. That is the biggest play of Sky Moore's career. Yeah, as a punt return. Sky Moore on punt return duties. I mean, late in the fourth quarter, so it's probably too little too late for Sky Moore. But good for him. That's tape that gets you signed somewhere else, Sky Moore. So good for you, dude.
We're playing in Cleveland next week.
Yeah. Dodd broke a couple of tackles. Also, some pretty poor tackling effort by these four-string Seattle players. But Sky Moore took it to the house. Okay, good for him. That was one highlight. Another highlight for the Kansas City Chiefs in this preseason game. But I am curious about this running back room, and we talked about it a little bit before the show got started. And I think Carson Steele's really been getting a lot of run through 2 preseason games. And I'm like, is Carson Steele just firmly on this roster? Because I really thought it was going to be tough for Carson Steele to make this team. And now, Brashard Smith, we talked about it last week too, Rocky. Like, Brashard Smith, everybody is hyping Brashard Smith up, and I'm sitting here like he's a 7th-round pick with veteran guys firmly ahead of him that the Chiefs trust. Like, he's not going it's not to mean that Brashard Smith can't be something at some point for the Chiefs or actually be a useful player. I just didn't see this idea where everybody's hyping up Brashard Smith to be a contributor early in his rookie season. And I think that's really shown in the preseason, what the Chiefs think of where he's at right now as a professional football player. But Carson Steele's been getting a lot of run ahead of Elijah Moore. And it's hard for me to believe that the Chiefs think more highly of Carson Steele than Elijah Mitchell. Unless with Mitchell, it's the injuries and everything that held him back in San Francisco have really just caught up to him, and he's not the same type of player that he was early on in his career when he was healthy. But we've just simply seen Elijah Mitchell be a much more productive NFL player than I think anything you could ever hope to get out of Carson Steele. And so then it's okay, well, is it actually maybe Carson Steele's not going to make the team? And so, but the Chiefs really like him. And so they're just giving him a bunch of playing time and just letting him showcase so he can go catch on somewhere else, which could certainly be the case too. But it is interesting that Carson Steele has been getting a lot of run through 2 preseason games. And in both circumstances, he was mostly playing ahead of Elijah Mitchell in those games.
Yeah, it is interesting. He was playing ahead of Elijah Mitchell. But I don't think Elijah Mitchell didn't show anything tonight in the opportunities that he had. But Carson Steele didn't show anything either. Carson Steele hasn't shown you anything in the preseason so far that makes you think, man, we've got to make a spot for this guy on the roster. I could be totally wrong. I view the situation as on a rainy night in Seattle, they were like, okay, let's give all the carries to Carson Steele because he was still playing deep into the second half too. Let's give all the carries to Carson Steele because we don't care too much what happens to him if he gets injured.
Yeah.
Let's put him out there. Let's put him out there. Let's just feed the ball to Carson Steele. Let's get out of here. It's late. It's wet. It's cold. And let's not risk injury to Elijah Mitchell, who has an injury history. Let's not risk injury to Brashard Smith, who, although he's a 7th-round draft pick and he's not an every down back, we have plans to use him as a gadget player in the offense this year. And so it could just be if Carson Steele makes the roster, it's a fullback, and he's going to get 3 carries in the regular season, and otherwise he's going to be a cut candidate. So give him the ball during the preseason.
And, it is going to be really interesting to see how this stuff plays out. And I do think there's going to be some really tough decisions on this roster when the Chiefs have to cut down to 53. But I think the last thing that I'm really interested in from this game, Rocky, and I do want to talk about the latest Rashee Rice stuff before we get out of here, is the safety rotation right now. We've been seeing a lot of Jaden Hicks, like a lot. And maybe some of that is just a young player. We're going to put a lot on him this season because we want him to be our next Justin Reed. And Justin Reed was asked to do a lot for this defense and was asked to really be the anchor of the secondary in a lot of ways. And so maybe this is just Jaden Hicks getting tons of reps to build on the expanded role that he is expected to have this year. Also, the Chiefs don't have a ton of safety depth, and now Mike Edwards is hurt with a hamstring injury. But I think we simply just don't know what the safety room really looks like until they get Christian Fulton on the field. Until they can move Chamari Connor out of the cornerback rotation, like, I still think Chamari Connor's probably going to play some safety this year. I think he is a much better suited skill set to be a safety than a cornerback. And so then it's like, is it Chamari Connor, Brian Cook, and Jaden Hicks? And it's going to be a rotation of those 3. And I think we just straight up don't know until we actually see Christian Fulton get back into the mix for their secondary.
100%. I think we don't know anything until we get Christian Fulton back. And I think that going back to what Steve Spagnuolo said in his last presser, this most recent presser, he talked about Chris Roland Wallace playing in the slot, and he was like, we were forced to put him there because of injuries. And I think the same thing with Chamari Connor. I think that there's guys that he doesn't want to play in certain spots that he has to because they don't have the bodies right now. And getting Christian Fulton back out on the field is job number 1. And I think that, obviously it was smart to hold him out today because he just got back to practice. You're like, you don't want to put a guy who's coming back from knee injury out on the field too soon on wet turf, you know what I mean, in a preseason game that doesn't matter. So prudence is important there. But yeah, I mean, you can't go into this season with Chamari Connor and Najee Johnson playing in the slot for you, right? Like you just can't do it. You talk about bringing in guys to round out the position room. If Christian Fulton's not ready to go, you need to bring in a body that can play legitimate NFL slot cornerback, because otherwise you have a problem. Mike Edwards looks like he maybe has lost a step prior to being injured tonight. So you don't want to have to count on him having significant snaps this season either. And so I think that there are still some veteran bodies out there that could help this team on both sides of the football with the cap space that they still have left. I don't think it'd be beyond the realm of possibility to see them bring in a name or two. But yeah, it just seems like the Chiefs are always one defensive back short of a starting lineup.
Yeah, and it's a real bummer that Christian Fulton just hasn't been available throughout the entirety of the preseason process. Because I just want to see what he looks like in the mix and what that secondary rotation is actually going to be. Because through 2 preseason games, I don't think we've gotten a look at what it's going to be in the regular season yet. But final thing before we get out of here, as you guys already know, it was announced on Thursday that Rashee Rice is set to have a disciplinary hearing with the NFL on September 30th, where they're essentially going to try to come to terms on some type of suspension for the upcoming season. So that means it's likely that he's going to be available for at least the first 4 weeks of the season, maybe the first 5 weeks of the season as we wait for something to come down. But then on Friday night, it was reported by Tom Pelissero that the NFL initially proposed Rashee Rice suspension of 10 plus games. The NFLPA countered that as no precedent exists for a suspension of that length. So a possible settlement could be reached before the season. So maybe they do come to a settlement before that hearing, which I think would be beneficial for the Kansas City Chiefs if they can, if they can wind up getting this thing to be like 4 to 6 games. But also, I'm seeing a lot of people like reacting to this, Rocky, like the 10 plus games thing is like, this is absurd. Like Jordan Addison only got 3 games and he got a DUI and he was speeding and driving like 120 miles per hour or whatever. And it's like, yeah, but Rashee Rice like hurt people. And thankfully, nobody was like severely hurt. But like he put people at risk through his own carelessness and reckless driving and decision making, and then pled guilty to multiple felonies and is going to be on probation for 5 years, is going to spend up to 30 days in jail over the duration of that 5-year period. And it's like, and that's what I've been saying all along is like, to me, it felt like it was a minimum of 6 games. Then Chiefs putting out there, they were hopeful for like a 4-game thing, was always just like wishful thinking to me. And always just like best case scenario, we try to pull some strings at the NFL offices and see if we can just get them to slap him with a 4-game and then we'll move on from it. And so to me, it always felt like the minimum was 6 games. And then I was like, but what I'm concerned about, Rocky, is what if the NFL says, yeah, this guy pled guilty to a bunch of felonies. What if we make an example out of him and we slap him with a 10-game suspension or longer than that? And turns out that's what the NFL was exactly trying to do. And so I don't think that should be shocking to anybody as the game comes to an end, 33-16 Seahawks, as Chiefs drop their preseason game up in Seattle. But Rocky, I don't think that should have been surprising to anyone. So I think it's crazy that people are acting like that was some shocking thing. Like, I get that Rashee Rice has done everything right since then. He has been a model citizen, and I hope that he continues to do so and prove that was truly just one mistake that a young player made, and somebody who, had success right out of the gate as a young NFL player and was just being a dumb kid and being reckless. And now he has truly learned from that. And hopefully we never have to worry about anything like that ever again. But like, that doesn't mean that he shouldn't also suffer the consequences of that from the NFL. So yeah, ideally it's a 6-game suspension, but I don't think anybody should have been shocked that the NFL was out here trying to slap him with 10 games.
No, 100% nobody should be shocked. And this is going to be a really unpopular opinion, but Rashee Rice probably deserves a 10-game suspension for what he did. Jordan Addison, yeah, he was drunk and he had a DUI and he was going over 100 miles an hour and he was stupid and he was foolish. But unfortunately, in the judicial system and in the United States and just in life in general, the outcome of your actions also matter alongside your actions as well. Jordan Addison could have ended up like Henry Ruggs and he could be in jail right now and his entire career could be over.
Yeah.
So could Rashee Rice. Rashee Rice could be in jail right now and his entire career could have been over because of his choices that he made. Rashee Rice did hit somebody and Jordan Addison didn't. Rashee Rice did cause bodily harm and over $1 million of damage, right? And Jordan Addison didn't. And there is a precedent for a DUI suspension in the NFL already. There is no precedent for what Rashee Rice did yet. Do I want him to get a 10-game suspension as a Chiefs fan? No. Do I think that it's beyond the fairness of what no, it's 100% fair for him to get it. Do I want them to negotiate it down? Sure. Is my biggest fear the fact that they don't negotiate it down? They go to settle. They go before Sue Robinson in this hearing, and she says no, 10 games is great, and then we lose him weeks 5 through 15, and then we're late in a playoff chase, and we have no Rashee Rice. Like, that's gonna suck. At that point, I almost hope that he's just gone for the first 10 games, and we have him for the last 7. But it is what it is at this point. Like, the guy was young, he was dumb, he made a really bad mistake. I don't begrudge him for it. I do hope that he's learned from it and he's a better person for it. And I wish him nothing but the most amount of success in life. But you still have consequences of your actions. And the fact that you said sorry for them doesn't remove those consequences,
Yeah.
So
I'm rooting for him. I want to see Rashee Rice on the football field for the Kansas City Chiefs. I just couldn't believe there were so many people acting like that was insane, that they were like shocked that the NFL would try to hit him with 10 games, just based on the severity of his charges. Like,
yeah,
they were pretty bad, guys. Like, I don't understand. So no, we'll see what happens. And I also think it's, a lot of people were saying, oh, it's because the Chiefs had such a tough first 4 weeks of the season. And it's like, I would way rather he be unavailable for the first month of the season than them not have him down the stretch of, trying. What if you're in like in the race for the 1 seed, like, and every game matters down the stretch and you don't have Rashee Rice? I get that it doesn't look as like top heavy down the back half for the Kansas City Chiefs. But like, I would rather have Rashee Rice down the stretch when we're getting to the games that really matter than in the first 4 weeks of the season, because the Chiefs aren't going to go 0-4 in the first 4 weeks, Rocky. Like, they're going to get at least 2 of those probably. Like, they'll find a way to win 2 of those games. And so even if they started the season 2-2, I'd be fine with that. And then they get Rashee Rice back and have him the rest of the way. That'd be great. Like, I don't think it's actually beneficial for them to have him at the start of the season either. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens with Rashee Rice. We'll see what happens with the Kansas City Chiefs as we move into the final week of the preseason. That concludes next Friday. Gets the Chicago Bears. Thank God, Rocky, it's at a normal time. So we're not going to be doing this at midnight on a Friday night. I'm sure the Chiefs starters aren't going to play in the final preseason game. We'll see what the Bears decide to do, but it's going to be a lot of tough decisions coming up over the next couple of weeks for the Kansas City Chiefs as we get closer and closer to the regular season. So thank you guys for hanging out with us tonight. As always, subscribe, rate, and review everything that we're doing right here at Foolish Club Media. Me and Rocky will be back next Friday. We got a full week of shows coming your way next week. So be on the lookout for that. Veach Season, Brian's World Show, and BK. Everything you love right here. We'll talk to you guys then.